Pause. Now tonight, the Ghana Football Association has announced it has decided to put its 2023 Ghana Football election timetable on hold. This is because now Division 1 League club Faisal have moved a motion for injunction at the Accra High Court. Now, a statement released earlier today by the association noted that Faisal and its lawyer filed the motion at the Accra High Court last week. They argue that according to the Ghana Football Association statutes, a legitimate Congress cannot convene to elect the Ghana Football Association president until the new members or representatives of the executive committee have been duly elected. Therefore, they are appealing to the courts to stop the GFA from holding the presidential election on September 27. Here is the full statement from the association, and it notes that the Ghana Football Association has decided to put the 2023 election timetable on hold, and it continues that this follows a motion for injunction filed at the Accra High Court by Faisal, Division 1 League Zone 2 club. Now, the statement further states that the GFA therefore wishes to inform all its members and stakeholders, especially applicants who have filed their nomination forms for various positions, of the suspension of the 2023 election process until the hearing of the motion on Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. That's tomorrow. Now, the statement further says the announcement of the decision by the Elections Committee following the vetting of the applicant has therefore been put on hold. Now, the association wishes to urge all members, clubs, and applicants to remain calm. The association will endeavor to seek appropriate legal redress for the prompt return to the 2023 election timetable and ensure that the calendar is not further disrupted. Now, the man who is leading this charge, this injunction on the election timetable, is the owner, and he's also a seasoned football administrator, and like I mentioned, the owner of Faisal. We'll speak to him briefly on the phone, but even before that, former Ghana Football Association president and board member of Accra Heart of Folk, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, has been reacting to this development, and he's been calling on Alhaji Gruza to withdraw the application and insisting that he should resort to the association's internal procedures for redress.
No, but a lot depends on what really has happened. If I got what you said clearly, was Faisal present when all these procedures took place?
Well, it's the elections committee that came up with their roadmap.
And they were present.
Yeah, because I'm aware there were pre-discussions.
Exactly. So if they were present, why on earth will he come out now and talk about it? And also, as you put it right, the FA has its own, what do you call it, a structure, where you have a committee that looks into such things. Yeah. So I would suggest it goes there first. Has he been there at all? Has he been there, or you are not aware?
Well, one of the things that I'm not aware is whether Faisal decided to go to the GFA committees to...
I think he must go there first. He must go to the GFA.
In fact, the matter is already in court. It will be heard on Wednesday. It's already in court. So the GFA has actually put on hold the processes to their elections.
And what you are saying now is news to me, but I think that would be very unfortunate. That is going really to affect the individual clubs. Because if you have boys now, you have to feed them, you have to pay them, and all sort of things. And if Faisal will go that way, I will be very much surprised.
They have gone that way. In fact, have gone that way.
They couldn't qualify. Were they able to qualify?
They got relegated, actually. They got relegated from the Premier League.
You see, well, I know Alhaji very well. But if you have been relegated, even such a case cannot qualify you to be in the Premier League at all.
Yeah, so the fight right now is not to be in the Premier League.
Unless he wants to destroy the whole football process.
Yeah, it's the election process that he's fighting.
Exactly.
The election process is flawed. So.
And that one, that would be unfair. I think I'll call him and tell him he should try and drag this out of court.
As a former Ghana Football Association President, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. Now, let's take a look at the timetable that Alhaji Gruza wants to be altered at the court. Now, you can see the timetable on your screens, and Friday, 8th September, but crucially is what is going to happen on Wednesday, 27th September 2023. That's the elective Congress, the election of president, election of Executive Council, the GPL Division 1, Women's Premier League reps, etc. And the argument by Alhaji Gruza is that this very item should not happen on 27th September. Rather, all the items, that's what's the election of RFA chairpersons, the RFA chairpersons elections, which is on Thursday, 5th October, and the election of the the District Football Association executives, the election for RFA executive council members, and also so the election of the association executive council members, the election for regional football association executive council members, and even the election of the regional football association chairpersons. Alhaji Gruza is contending that all of these should happen before the September 27th election, which is the election of the president. That's what he's contending. And he says that this is based on the statutes of the Ghana Football Association. So we decided to take a look at the statutes of the Ghana Football Association and what it says about the elections. Now, this is Article 30 of the Ghana Football Association elections. And on Article 30, you see, it talks about elections or appointments. Point 1, it says elections shall be conducted by secret ballot. Elections within GFA shall be conducted in accordance with the statutes and GFA regulations. On elections, it talks about the election of the president taking place by position. Each candidate for position of president shall be proposed by one member and supported by 5 members. It goes on and on and on and on, and even talks about how one emerges as winner of the elections. Talks about 50%, the one who gets the highest number in terms of the voting ends up as president of the association. And it goes on to talk about how the other, individuals in the executive council can also be elected. Nowhere in Article 30 of the Ghana Football Association statutes does it speak to when the election of the president should occur. Now, even if you go take a look at the GFA regulations on elections, it does not also speak to when the election of the president shall occur. However, it does appear that what Alhaji Gruza is relying on is the convention. It has been the convention that the election of the president takes place after the election of the RFA chairpersons, the district elections. After all these elections have taken place, then the election of the president takes place. That has been the precedent. However, this time around, there has been a change where the election of the president is taking place before all of these. And Alhaji is contending that it should not be so. Rather, all the other regional football association district elections should take place before the election of the president. So that's the case of Alhaji. And tomorrow at the Accra High Court, the court will determine whether indeed Alhaji has a case or the Ghana Football Association should go ahead and conduct the elections. So like we mentioned earlier, the association has therefore suspended the timeline and waiting to hear from the court what should be the directive. Joining us all the way from Kumasi is the head of sports of Insura FM, Bismarck Ayala. He's been following this matter. He's been gathering detail relative to what the camp of King Faisal has been preparing ahead of the hearing tomorrow. And he joins me via Zoom to share a lot more with us on this very matter. Bismarck, thank you so much for making time to join us on Prime Sports. Tomorrow is a big day for the Ghana Football Association and for Alhaji Gruza. He's seeking to put an injunction on the elections which were slated for September 27 and has now been suspended by the association. What have you been picking from the camp of Alhaji Gruza so far?
Thank you very much. I think it is very, very informative to know that the lawyer who is in charge of this case, talking about lawyer Kwame Kwesi, has been on this tangent for a very, very long time. He has indeed taken the Ghana Football Association to court on several occasions on this same subject matter. What has happened in the past is that the court has been dismissing his case, basically with the verdict coming out to say he doesn't have the locus to take the Ghana Football Association to the law court. Now, I am very, very happy that this time around he has a locus with King Faisal for this case. So the case will not be dismissed based on lack of locus, but the substantive matter will be heard. And that is very, very important for this matter. And when I say it's very, very important, what I mean is that the verdict then will set out the precedent as to how to tackle election cases going forward. So I am very, very happy that this time around, lawyer Kwame Kwesi has a locus in King Faisal and is being heard on the substantive matter of this case. Now, if you look at the King Faisal case, just as you've mentioned, the crux of the matter is that they are seeking to tell the courts that they will want the court to validate a bottom-top approach rather than what is set out by the election committee and approved by the ESCO. Now, as you put it, if you look at their declaration, they are seeking for interpretation of the status of the Ghana Football Association. And just as we've mentioned, if you look at the articles quoted by King Faisal in their case, the Article 30, which talks about elections and appointments, was projected some few minutes ago when you read through what it constituted. Now, they added Article 31, which talks about the ordinary Congress. And in Article 31, it talks about the ordinary section happening once every year before the commencement of a season. The ESCO determining or having the responsibility to set the date and the venue and notifying the members 10 days in advance. And the convocation of the Congress made ready 7 days before the date set by the executive committee members. Now, King Faisal moves on to also make a case of Article 32, which talks about the ordinary Congress agenda, and go on to say that in the Article 32 2K, which talks about the election of the president, they think that in the letter and the spirit of this law, the framers of the Constitution or the statutes of the FA was thinking about everything will be in place before the presidential election. So when we have to go through a Congress, they assume that per the framers of this Constitution, the members who will be attending the Congress will be in place, i.e. the RFAs, the ESCO, and everybody, so that the election of the president will take place by valid people who by then are people who have been voted fresh into office and not office of tenure expired as described by King Faisal. But you see, there's one portion of this change status that creates a caveat, especially in the Article 32, which talks about the ordinary Congress. Now, King Faisal is quoting the 32 2K, which talks about the election of the president. But in the 32D, talks about that ordinary Congress having an address of the president. The same Congress that is going to elect the president, before the election, there is an address by the president. So even after that time, the Congress, if it fits to address the president of the Ghana Football Association, the president of the association. So if the president can have an address in his capacity as the president, then why can't the other members, i.e. the ESCO members and the RFA, come to vote as RFAs and as ESCOs of the election? And that is one key factor that I would want to listen to the judge have a very, very good verdict on that. Article 37(1) talks about the composition of the ESCO, and it is very, very ordinary that we all know that the composition of the ESCO, the 12-member ESCO, is with the president, the 5 members from the Premier League, the 3 members from the Division 1, 1 woman from the Women's Premier League, and the 2 RFAs elected by the 10 members onto the executive committee. Now, that is where I have a problem. You see, why is it that a very, very crucial exercise like the approval of the election roadmap is set as a responsibility by the status of the Ghana Football Association to be that of the ESCO? And if people raise the issue of conflict of interest, that is where the crux of the matter is. For me, going forward, in tackling this topic, the approval of the election committee's roadmap must be a subject of Congress and not the ESCO members. Because now what you are realizing is that members who are supposed to contest are now raising the issue that, look, if the approval of the election roadmap is left for the executive council members, there will be a conflict of interest because there will be a case where members of the ESCO will also be seeking a re-election back into the ESCO room. And these are the same members who will approve the roadmap of the election committee. Then it becomes a case of, if the roadmap seems out, we will then go on to approve it rather than listen to other members who probably think that the roadmap doesn't suit them. So for me, I think in the broader solution to this matter, the approval of the election committee's roadmap must be a responsibility of the Congress and not by the GFA ESCO. Then number two, now if you read the writ of King Faisal and the declaration is to seek interpretation of the laws and of the status of the FA, it makes it quite a funny presumption that a member of the FA is taking just an interpretation of their own laws, and there is no internal mechanism that they could write to for either the legal committee of the FA or the general secretary to take a member through the interpretation of their own status.
And that's the point. And that's the point Nyaho Tamakula makes about, Alhaji Guza exhausting the internal procedures at the association before even resorting to the court. And it looks like Alhaji clearly did not look in that direction. I mean, why would you think he will not consider it, or even his lawyer advise him that even before we get to the Accra High Court, let's write to the legal committee or anybody that can offer some interpretation to us relative to what this rule really means? Why do you think Alhaji Guza decided not to resort to any of the internal processes available to resolve this matter, but went to court? Could it be because of the recent acrimony that appears to be existing between him and the association?
For me, it's an issue of trust. It's simply an issue of trust. The trust of the system, trust of the people who embody the system. Because, for instance, it may be an assumption by King Faisal that the electoral committee does its work, run it through the legal committee of the Ghana Football Association before it being submitted to the executive members, because the election and its processes are legal. So it is assumed that after the election committee does its work, they will run it through the legal committee of the Ghana Football Association to know that they are going according to the status and that there is nothing in breach of the status before submitting it to the ESCO members for approval. So once the approval is done, if you are outside the ESCO and within the corridors of power within the FA, you may assume that this has been run by the illegal committee of the Ghana Football Association. So going back to them for interpretation of you seeing a breach of that same status probably will be problematic. But for me, I agree with Dr. Nyahota Maklo. This is an association that has internal mechanism of solving issues. If you are seeking just an interpretation of a status or laws done within the same association, there should be that kind of track and system in place and mechanism for you to seek that internally and not move away to the external court. Because at the end of the day, what we will come back to when this case is heard tomorrow, aftermath of it will be a Congress that will move a motion that King Faisal as a member has breached the status of the Ghana Football Association by taking matters of the Football Association to an external court, and the punishment is fought out right within the status of an expulsion of a club, King Faisal, and we will go through that again as media and as the Ghana Football Association. This doesn't augur well for the perception. It doesn't augur well for an institution we want to see more organized and believe in their internal mechanism. And these are problems that we think would have been a problem of the past. Ayala,
finally, at the Eastern region, of course, I'm sure is underway, is the launch of the new season of the Ghana Premier League. I'm sure it's underway if it has not already ended. Is this case likely to affect its start in any shape or form if it goes in the favor of King Faisal?
No. You see, in terms of the poster of the FA, it is a case of we are in power. If you want to seek an injunction, you place it on it, we remain in power. Until the case is heard, until all the obstructions are removed, we are still assuming power and we will be in place. So, for instance, the executive committee allowance was supposed to cease by September ending. Now, if this case drags into October and the rest of the month, they are in power and they will be benefiting from these same conditions that they serve as ESCO members. So it has no bearing on the administration of the Ghana Football Association. Now, I omitted this. Now, you see, the last FA election was done in October. Now, this election is slated for September. What it means is that in terms of ordinary dating, this election is even coming early. So if you make a case that the RFA tenure of office has expired, the ESCO member tenure of office has expired, and that they don't have the locus and the validation to vote for the next president, will it really stand on its leg in front of any judge who knows dating and knows when October and September are? These are very, very interesting matters that we want to follow. We don't want to predict anything for the fear of contempt of the case. Tomorrow is just some few hours away. So we will wait. But these are the things that any follower of the case will be looking at, and will be very, very, very anxious as to the results of it. The FA yesterday in their release assured all stakeholders that this case will be dealt with, and they will return back to the roadmap and follow it to the letter and make sure that the elections are conducted and the new phase of the administration continues. We hope so as the media, we hope so as stakeholders of the game. We need a smooth running of the Ghana Football Association to take care of our football for us.
Thank you, Besma Kayala, Head of Sports at Insure FM, with our sister station, that's our sister station, Insure FM in Kumasi. Well, so we wait to see. We'll bring you some more analysis after the court hearing tomorrow. But let's just wrap up with some words for the English Premier League. Deserving players who clearly did well last season is underway in England, and already the Professional Football Association's awards. You can see the awards already out there, and it's Rodri who has also been able to pick an award there. As the midfielder. As a member of the Premier League team of the year over there. And you can see the ladies who have also been able to pick some awards for themselves there. And, also Bukayo Saka, Saliba, Ramsdale, and of course the man all in the team of the year over there. You can see. So that's the team of the year. Erling Haaland is also in there for himself. And this is the special award over there. Bukayo Saka picking the young player of the year, and Erling Haaland picking the PFA player of the year over there. And so you can see Ramsdale also in the team of the year, and Erling Haaland in his first season in the English Premier League, and he's already making waves for himself. Well, that's all we have for you on Prime Sports tonight with me, Razak. Thank you for being a part of this. We'll be back same time tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.